Joe Turk, and this is my Star Wars collection.
So hello again. We're with another collector here. I'm Jack, and this is Jim. We're here with a guy named Joe. Joe, if you can take just a moment or two, introduce yourselves, let us know who you are, where you're from, and what type of things you're collecting.
Hi, my name is Joe Turk. I live in Las Vegas, Nevada. And as you can see, I collect Star Wars stuff, a lot of it.
A lot of nice Star Wars stuff.
You know, all Star Wars stuff is nice Star Wars stuff, but I am seeing a ton of things right behind you there. It looks like you have, things from Episode 1, maybe some Power of the Force or Power of the Jedi action figures back there with like the green stripe. I'm seeing a lot of things right behind you. Kind of just talk me into what's going on behind you. How did you get that collection going?
So these are all original pieces from when they first came out in the 90s. I was a big collector back then. I loved going to Toys R Us and Walmart and Target and seeing what they had that day. And then, you convince your parents to go back a week later because they might have something new. And then your parents get sick of taking you all the time. But every piece is from that era. I mean, a couple of pieces I might have picked up on eBay because I was impatient. And I paid scalper prices back then. And we know how well that went for today's prices. But yeah, every single piece I have has a story. I remember going to the store. I remember that feeling, when you find it on the peg and you've been waiting a long time to get it. This is kind of my bread and butter. How I got started collecting was this line, the Power of the Force 2 line, starting in '95. I followed the Episode 1 line all the way to the Saga line in 2002, and then different stages in life. I got older. I moved out. I had to find work. I had a smaller place to live, and so I kind of slid off. The Revenge of the Sith line came out in 2005. That was the first line where I wasn't like, I need everything. I kind of had to just pick and choose what I wanted. And then ever since then, I've been just trying to get pieces as I go. And then a couple years ago, I bought my first house. And one of the reasons I wanted to buy a house was I wanted a Star Wars room. I wanted to be able to put everything in one spot. And then ever since I got this room, it kind of picked up again. I've been really just every day I'm looking for something.
From the looks of it, though, that room is full.
Yeah, it's full now. I'm very selective again. Yeah. I have to. There's a couple of things that Hasbro's releasing this coming year that I'm definitely, I need that. I'm gonna get it. But a lot of times they roll stuff out, and I'm like, I don't have the space. I'm gonna have to wait and see how it goes in the future. But
so
I'm definitely
a lot of what we see. A lot of what we see behind you is all the carded figures, but on the video that you've sent to me that we're going to show, there's a whole lot of other scaled stuff. A lot of it, and there's a lot of stuff such as a video machine that's back there, and then there's of course my favorite, the Princess Leia slave girl. And tell me a little bit about those.
Yeah, so this is sort of my bread and butter, these carded figures. But I feel other figures, they look better out of the packaging, like the Black Series 6-inch figure line. I feel like Hasbro kind of purposely made that packaging a little bland because they kind of want you to open it because there's a lot of work and craft that went into those figures, a lot of the detail and the deco and things like that. So I like opening those and posing them in various things. I make dioramas with them sometimes. And then the OG Kenner line, I'm not rich, so I can't really afford to get that one carded. I have a few bits and pieces, but for the most part, I have those loose. And then that Leia statue and the Ewok statue that I have, those are Sideshow collectible premium format figures.
Sideshow, that's what Josh had said earlier.
Yeah, the Polystone figures from I'd say 2010 to 2013-ish, roughly that era.
And where would you buy those?
Those took me a long time. Those are definitely, you have to scour eBay, you have to scour Mercari, you have to look in your local collectible stores. That Ewok figure took me a long time to find. I just got lucky. I was scouring eBay, popped up, I put an offer now, the guy accepted it. The Leia was, that one shows up every now and then on eBay. It's pretty pricey.
Yeah.
And one day it was an auction and I bid, and about 10 minutes before it ended, somebody outbid me. And part of me was a little glad because I was sort of a high bid and I couldn't really afford it. But I was playing the eBay game where I was also, part of me was a little upset. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to bid a little bit higher. So that guy's got to pay more.
Right.
Whatever it was. I think we've all played that game. We could be bitter.
Yep.
So I did it, and it put me back in as the high bidder. And I said, that's incorrect because it wasn't much more than what the high bid was. So I said, oh, this guy will surely, outbid me. Right. I mean, there's no question. And then the auction, I saw the numbers ticking down, and I was like, I think I made a mistake. And then it went through, and at first I was like, I was immediately gonna write the guy and be like, hey man, I was screwing around. I'm not paying this. Like I'm my eBay account takes a hit. But I thought about it. I said, no, when else am I gonna get this? It's
Right.
pretty rare. So I bought it, and it's one of the jewels in my collection. I'm very, very glad I have it.
There's actually two of the Princess Leia slave girls there. The one where she's standing up holding the staff, and then there's
that was a Gentle Giant piece. The Gentle Giant, like bust size ones. Those are, I'd say probably same era, early 2010s maybe. That one was, I was just on Macari, and if you notice in the video, the staff's actually busted. So the person selling it just wanted to get rid of it, and I got it pennies on the dollar, and I was like, I'm not patching that up, so I'm just gonna grab it,
So you're kind of all over the place, size-wise and such. I mean, I can see again the carded 3 3/4 inches, the ones we just spoke of, the 6-inch black series there. You've got quite a wide range of collectibles.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, like these carded 3 3/4 are kind of my bread and butter, but I like everything. I love branching out. It's whatever catches my eye at the time. Right now that I'm sort of running out of space, my favorite thing is like the most bizarre oddball things that I can get my hands on, like just really strange items. I'm always excited when I find something like that when I'm at like an antique mall or just cruising on eBay one night and something comes up and I'm like, what is this? Who made this and who would buy this? I'm gonna buy this. That's what's gonna happen. So
in addition to the more go ahead.
Let me ask you this, Joe. Why Star Wars? Why did you choose to collect Star Wars as opposed to some other series, some other franchise?
So it's kind of a funny story. I was born in 1982. So by the time that I was old enough to really start collecting toys, to play with toys and things like that, Star Wars was already out of the stores. It had already moved on culturally. People were on to the next thing. I was living in Korea at the time on a U.S. Army base. So the store there would only get like the really big items at the time. So it was like G.I. Joe. I remember when Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles first showed up in the stores. That was like a big deal at my school. So I had watched Star Wars on VHS. I knew what it was. I was a fan. I liked it. But to me, it was sort of something that was like on the shelf with everything else. It was Star Wars, G.I. Joe, Transformers. It was on that level to me. And I remember I had a classmate in the first grade, and he said, "Oh yeah, my brother had Star Wars toys he's given me." And I remember telling him, like, Star Wars toys? There's no Star Wars toys. Those things don't exist. What are you talking about? Like, why would they make toys out of a movie? I don't know what you're talking about. So he says, "Come after class and I'll show you." I came over, and I remember the first thing he had when he went to the door was the 1985 Han Solo and Carbonite Power of the Force figure. And he showed it to me, and then he took when the figure comes out of the back, and he said, see, he goes into Carbonite. And I was like, I saw that in the movie, and now you're holding it in your hand, and it like blew me away. I was like, that's insane, right? And then I went into his living room, and he set up the Ewok playset. And I love the Ewok.
I can see that hut.
That was one of my favorite parts of the movie. Yeah, and I was just absolutely blown away. And I remember telling my dad, "Hey, we got to go get Star Wars toys." And he was like, "They're not in the stores. I don't know what you're talking about. Like, we can't get those." So that was like sort of the first seed that went into my head. And I had other collections as I was growing up. I played with them as many of us did. And then I moved on to the next thing. And then when I was about 12 or 13, so 93, 94, 95, that time period, you guys can remember there wasn't a lot of Star Wars stuff available. It was like, what they call the dark times, a lot of collectors. And it was just starting its slight resurgence. The Timothy Zahn books had come out and people were sort of getting interested again. So whenever I was in a store and I saw anything Star Wars, it was so rare to me, which is funny to think about these days, but it was so rare to me. I told my parents, like, you have to get that for me. because I've never seen a Star Wars thing in the store. And at that age that the movies were kind of reconnecting with me again, because I've always been interested in like, grand storytelling and human behavior and, mythology, and why do people do what they do. And Star Wars is kind of the ultimate set of movies or story that tells all that, like the human condition. So I sort of like really grasping onto it. And then I'd see something in the store. So like my mind was, it was like, it's a rare item. I have to have it. And then my poor parents, they'd be like, I'll get you this one item because when are we going to see something again? And then, 94, 93, 94, those glue micro machines came out. And my dad was like, well, how many of these can come out? I'll get you this set. And then the Hasbro or Kenner came out with the Power of the Force 2 line in 95, and there's only like 5 figures. And he's like, yeah, I'll get you those 5. And then the next wave was 6. And then this happened. So, and then it's just been rolling ever since. I just scaled up with it.
Since you were buying those Power of the Force 2 figures so early, do you have any that have, like the short lightsaber, but in the long packaging?
Yeah, I was obsessed with the variants back then. I don't know, just the collector mindset of you had to have everything, right? I was very obsessed back then, and I did spend my time and money hunting down those variants. And of course, these days, I didn't need to do that. But I do have most of them. Some of the doubles, I needed wall space as time went on. So when I had like 3 Vaders because one was a long saber, one was a short saber and a long saber case, one was I started taking some of them off the wall because I had to slide them over to make space for other stuff that had to go up. So,
but you still hung on to those ones you took down.
I did. They're sitting in the closet. There was a period where I was going to give them to my cousin's kids because they were getting into Star Wars. But then I don't know, the memory of having them, I probably should have given it to them.
But your motivation for collecting all of this is not so much an investment for resale. It's more memorabilia, stuff that reminds you of your childhood.
Oh, for sure. Every piece I have in my collection has a story. I mean, I remember where I got it. As I get older, there are some pieces I look at and I'm like, I don't remember buying this, but I have it. So, but for the most part, yeah, I'm not interested in reselling unless I just absolutely have to, or there's a piece I look at and it's not stimulating me anymore. I'll sell it, but usually not for profit. It's pretty rare.
Do you have anything that you would consider is graded?
Graded? No, not really. I like, to me, the importance is, does it look good to me? And does it look good when I display it? But I've never been a guy that's been obsessed with, I had to get it graded. It has to be 8.3. It has to, it's never been me. I'm not talking ill of that. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just not something that was for me personally.
Sure. And then I also wanted to ask, you said that back in the late 80s, early 90s, you'd be out with your parents where there was no real Star Wars merchandise out there at that time. It was the dark times, as you mentioned. But you would see something in an antique store or some kind of vintage shop. Do you remember what any of those first items were that you bought that you had your parents buy for you before the actual collection started?
I do. There's 2 pieces very vividly I remember. One is the original Boba Fett. That, I mean, I forgot to check the year on it, but I'm sure it came out in 80. But I was living in Virginia at that time, and my mom and I were at an antique store, and they had it. And that's just when the secondary market for Kenner was starting to kick off. So it was pretty pricey for an old figure. So I told my mom, like, I have to have this Boba Fett. I have to have it. She was just like, why am I going to pay? I mean, I think it was like $17 back in mid-90s money for it. She's like, I'm not paying that for no. And I was like, please. So, yeah, I remember that sensation, that feeling of seeing it behind the glass. Like, I couldn't believe it, And I still have that figure. It still sits in my OG Kenner lineup. And then the second was, the idea, like, the reason I like on-card stuff is I feel that, when you're selling a product and you're competing with shelf space at a Target or Toys R Us or whatever it was, you had to design it in a way that would catch people's eyes, right? That would, like, wow, look at that. It stimulated part of their mind or something. So I consider it kind of like art pieces that when they're still in the packaging, because you can see how they're trying to sell it to you, So like, to me, it's the whole thing. But when I was a kid, obviously, when you get the toy, you open it, you play with it, you throw the packaging away, it did its job for you to buy it off the shelf. But back in the old AOL dial-up days, there was one of the first things I ever used the internet for was Star Wars. I was like, wow, there's other Star Wars fans out there. I got to talk to these guys type way. But there was a collector forum, and somebody said they had an original Weequay figure from Return of the Jedi still on card. And in my mind, I was like, wow, somebody didn't open their figure for like 11 years. I need that. So I told the guy I wanted to buy it. And this was back in the day before transactions or anything. I had to send the guy cash.
Oh.
And then hopefully I'd get it back. And thankfully, it's trustworthy. I guess Star Wars collectors groups can be trustworthy still. But he sent it to me. And I remember when I was opening up the box, there's a bunch of packing peanuts. And I reached in and I pulled it out. And that was the first time I had ever seen, I have it up there, first time I'd ever seen a on-card old Star Wars figure. Because like I said, they're all out of the stores by the time I started playing with toys. And I remember that feeling was like, just blew me away. I'd never seen a photo online. I'd never seen anything. And like, it's like I was holding an ancient piece of history or something,
Yeah.
Even though it wasn't that old.
It's a connection to time.
Yeah. I mean, and for sure. And I that sensation, I remember it was sort of the kickoff where I was like, I need to get this stuff. This is like so cool. It's like so neat,
So
And
speaking of time, you've been doing this for about 30 years now.
Oh yeah, it's been a long time. I mean, every time somebody comes in and looks at it, they go, how long have you been doing this? And I'm like, I mean, since I was a kid, since I was probably 11, 12, something like that.
Wow. Really, really incredible. That is awesome. We talk about some of the restrictions on how much you can display and kind of your size restrictions on different things like that. Is there anything in your head, like when you're putting things up on the wall where you say, look, this is too big. I can't keep putting these big items here. I mean, I saw that you had the AT-AT walker and you've got, Luke hanging from it. And that's, obviously kind of loose and out there. Is that something that's almost just like too big for you? Or are you saying, well, I've got to have an AT-AT, so that's the space for the AT-AT?
Sometimes I'll see something online and I'll be like, the whole room's gonna get rearranged for it because I need it. And I've had to do that several times. Just recently, I bought a Hot Toys figure of Kylo Ren, and I had to rearrange an entire IKEA Detolf shelf of stuff I had in it to get it in there. But I was like, once I was done, I was like, it was worth it, worth my time and money to do that.
So your display now seems to be predominantly up against the wall and on the wall with that cabinet there in the center. You don't have any racks or anything like that set up. It's all stuck on the wall.
Yeah, it's I have most of the stuff stuck up on the wall, and then I'm trying to figure out to get a little bit more shelving in here. But as you can see in the video, there's just I'm thinking one day I'll crack the code. I'll figure it out.
And how would you attach those, affix those to the wall?
I don't think those would go on the wall. I think they'd have to be freestanding somewhere.
No. What you have now, how are they attached to the wall now?
I just push pin them in.
Okay.
I push pin them in, and then I can't advocate enough for those 3M command strips that they're like sticky that you can hang like posters or photos or stuff on. Those are fantastic. I don't like drilling into my wall if I don't have to.
Right.
And those things are great. A lot of the art, I mean, every single art piece I have in here, I've used the command strips, like this painting here. I use the command strips on. That's a canvas piece. Yeah, nothing is now that you mention it, nothing's drilled in at all. It's either stick it in or I push pinned it in, and that's it.
And how is your display lit?
That is something that I'm working on. That's my next mega big project for the room. I just have one singular ceiling light.
Okay.
I did try to use some IKEA sticky lights that you stick them on and then you just push them. I tried to use them on the shelves for the Kenner figures in the middle, but it didn't provide enough. So I think the next big project is I'm going to get those sticky LED lights and have them like around, and then when you just click a button, it lights it up real good. Mm-hmm. But that's something I've been putting off for a while. One day I will do it because I have noticed the shadows in here when it gets to nighttime and I turn that singular light on. It's kind of hard to see stuff sometimes.
And then I also wanted to follow up, like, what is the decision as far as like what to display and where? Obviously you have the episode 1 figures all together there. You've got some of the Power of the Jedi or Power of the Force 2 greenback figures displayed there as well. But, you know, as we look across the entire room, there's things on the ground, there's rugs on the floor, there's Millennium Falcons on top of a Millennium Falcon rug. What is the decision of where to put what and why?
Well, just space limitations. I try to keep things together, style wise. So like these are all in linear order, going from the top down, from when they came out. That's how I try to organize that. And then as this wall goes along, you know, it fades into like the Revenge of the Sith figures, the saga figures from 2004 on, you know, like that. And then I try to keep all the OG Kenners together, on the shelf, and then you know, like try to keep the Black Series together, try to keep things like that. But as you can see, sometimes things leak. I don't have the space, you know. Sometimes I get frustrated because I'm like, oh, if this thing goes here, it breaks up the flow and the pattern. But then I also think it's my room, it's my collection, and I can do whatever the hell I want. So I just do it. So,
do you find yourself limited to just that room?
It's already started to spill out. It's spilled out into the hallway, a very, very small hallway that you have to use to get in here. All my TVC on card figures are outside on the wall. I have a little Last Jedi section. I keep all the Last Jedi stuff out there. My wife's been pretty tolerant. She knows it's leaking out, and sometimes she likes my collection. She's very happy about it. But sometimes I'll be like, hey, I just need a little bit more wall space going this way, and she kind of goes, okay, you know.
You know, I did see in your video that you sent to us as well that speaking of The Last Jedi, you have a diorama set up with Ren and Rey kind of back to back to each other with kind of the red guards surrounding them. Is that in this main room, or was that one of the hall pieces?
Oh, that's one of the hall pieces. That was like just trying to make a Last Jedi section, I guess. Mm-hmm. But that's when I try to make the dioramas with the 6-inch figures, because they're like the perfect size for them. I mean, they're great.
Sure. You know? And very posable as well.
Yeah.
And then, you know, so I obviously saw those Last Jedi figures, but I also see stuff from the Bad Batch and the Mandalorian, and that's all very recent type of stuff. So obviously you're still collecting Star Wars and some of the offshoots of Star Wars. What do you think about some of these new franchises that have come out, like the Bad Batch?
I like them. I just watched episode 4 right before I came upstairs. The interview with you guys. I mean, I'm enjoying all the new stuff so far. I think they do a very good job. I think the showrunners really understand the stories and the universe, and I'm very pleased. I'm very happy.
Who owned the Millennium Falcon before Han Solo? Lando Calrissian. Did you get the correct answer? Either way, we hope you enjoyed testing your knowledge of all things Star Wars and had fun along the way.
Is this heaven?
No, this is the Collector Alliance.
Man, I heard there's a subscription.
Didn't you buy that for $100?
Yeah, so?
Okay, let me explain some basic arithmetic. Other platforms charge exorbitant fees. You could have purchased that on TCA for $70 instead of the $100 you paid, thus saving you $30 in fees alone. Meaning the subscription pays for itself.
Yeah, I get it. But why don't I just buy it off social media where there's no fees at all? Oh!
Come on, Scotty. How did that go for you?
It didn't go well. I clicked on something, my mom has a computer virus, and they sent me a bunch of laugh crying emojis. My wife left. Zuckerberg took my wife! She left the dog. I don't even like the dog. My therapist fired me. Don't they take an oath? I'm too young to get scammed. Is TCA gonna bring my wife back? Where's my wife?
So what you're saying is, when the platform is free, you're the product, and it's not free at all. There's no such thing as a free lunch. Well, there is at my school cafeteria, but the pizza sucks and the lunch lady has a fro, and... The Collector Alliance is where buyers get better deals and sellers don't get nickeled and dimed. So simple and easy, even a kid gets it.
Join today at thecollectoralliance.com. Download the app and make us your first choice to buy, sell, and trade your collectibles. Zuckerberg took my wife!
This is Jack in the Box. We finally get our box back from CAS.
Me? Poetry?
We don't just spread fun through action figures, we get close and personal with the actors that played these characters.
I'm Nick Joseph, and I played Major Arhul Extrafon.
You were the one that banged his head in that doorway?
Yes, that's me, yes.
And then they dressed me as a Hoth rebel.
Be sure to subscribe and binge watch all of our episodes. Thanks for tuning in to Jack in the Box. And then what about?
Very interesting as to how it all connects to all these different shows. All have connections of some sort.
Yeah, in some way, and they all link together. And one of my favorite things about Star Wars is it kind of mimics human history. That it's a grand tale, and decisions people had made before have consequences that the characters you're watching are playing out now, and things like that. So I do like the more stories that are told, the more kind of grand spectacle that we get. And how they can play on various parts of the universe and tell stories in certain ways. Like I loved Andor, and that was very, very different than anything we'd ever seen before. But even when I was a small kid, I always said I want a show that takes place in the universe, but doesn't involve the regular characters. Sort of involves like the day-to-day, what it would be like living in a time like that, in a place like that. And then like by episode 3 of Andor, I thought, oh my God, this is it. It's like they read my 11-year-old brain, But I love stories like that. I love that each show and each storyteller can have their own little twist on it, but it's still part of the big world.
And then to circle that back around to your collection, do you feel now a need or some sort of compulsion to now collect Andor action figures or Andor merchandise?
For sure. That when the show was on and Hasbro Pulse, had that unveiling of the figures. The only thing I could think of was like, why aren't they in stores right now? Like, why did you delay that? Like, what are you doing? And then I know Hasbro's been having some issues, and when I brought that up online, everybody said you're not paying attention. And I said, well, like Wakanda Forever, those figures were in the store a month before that movie came out. And I understand different distributors, different manufacturers, and all those issues, but I was like, come on, guys, like, have something. I know Hasbro Pulse had the exclusive Black Series figures with B2 EMO and Cassian, and I bought that. I was like, I'm not waiting. I want that. But for sure, like the TVC figures, I'm counting down the days. I'm like, where are they? I want them all on my wall.
Yeah, those pre-sales with dates into the spring. I want to buy it, but it kind of deters me to committing to something 3-6 months down the road.
Yeah. And not only that, you commit, you pay for shipping, and a lot of times, like your local collectible stores, they have them before you get them. That's the most frustrating part. And you're like, I could have had it in my hand already, but now I got to wait an extra 2 weeks or whatever.
And speaking of collectible stores, you mentioned eBay collectible stores. I think you mentioned Toys R Us, which is no longer around. Where are the places that you're obtaining all of this stuff from?
Well, the vast majority of it's online. I'm always looking on Mercari or eBay. Living in Las Vegas, I'm pretty lucky. There's a lot of collectible stores here.
Yeah.
There's a pretty big culture over here. And there's 2 big stores I go to a lot. They're called Brad's Toys and Rogue Toys. I'm always hitting them up. They know me. they know my wife and I. We go so much. They know it's my first name basis.
Hi, Joe.
Yeah. And I'm always just scouring, and then I follow them on Instagram. So when they get the new wave of stuff, I'm like, well, I know where I'm going after work today. I'm swinging by, to pick up that item. So.
And who is the collector? You, your wife, a combo?
Well, for Star Wars, it's definitely me. She picks up an item every now and then. Like she just bought some electronic Grogu that, like when you touch its head, it moves and stuff. And because she got it for sale at Walmart. But she collects her own stuff. Like she collects DVDs, Beanie Babies. We both collect wrestling stuff every now and then. But Star Wars is definitely by far. Nothing close to this for her, for sure.
And I was going to follow up with, like, who sees this collection when you get a new piece and you put it up? Obviously, it's for you first. Maybe the wife comes in, she checks it out. Who else sees it? Who do you show it off to?
Just when friends come over, if there's an update, I'll bring them upstairs. Sometimes people ask, they want to see it. I post images on my Instagram every now and then. Some of my friends who live in, like, I used to live in Seattle, so some of my friends in Seattle will always write me and be like, "Hey, when are you gonna post that new picture? I want to. Do you have anything new?" Things like that. Um, I mean, but mostly it's for me. I do it for me. I mean, I organize it how I want to see it. Um, every once in a while, I walk into the room and I'm like, okay, if I was a fresh new set of eyes, what would be the first thing I'm drawn to? And then I'd kind of maybe think about rearranging something. But for the most part, it's just for me. I just like coming in here and looking at stuff, relaxing sometimes. You know, when I'm bored, I'll move things around. I'll dust things like that.
So
And
as a collector, would you consider yourself obsessive, compulsive? Are you got kind of a budget that you try to remain in, or is this in control or out of control?
I'd say these days it's more in control. There was a period where it was pretty nuts. You know, like I said, when I was younger, when I needed like every variant, every piece of the line. I'm definitely not like that anymore. I do budget, and running out of space helped. It's a lot easier to budget when you don't have the space to put stuff in. But I'd say I'm pretty obsessive. I mean, as you could see, and especially in the video. But I feel like it's not, you know, I'm not gonna go bankrupt or anything over this. You know, I always try to get the best price. I'm always hunting for a good deal. I mean, that's kind of the thrill of it too, right? Is it always feels better when you know you got a good price on something.
Yeah.
So.
I was going to follow up, when people from the outside come in and see your collection, is there one piece in particular or a couple pieces in particular that you think get the most conversations started about? Like are their eyes drawn to first?
I noticed most people. I just had my cousin and her son visit a couple weeks ago, and the first thing that my cousin said, he audibly went, "Whoa!" When I opened the doors, he saw the OG Kenner figures, and they're kind of designed at line of sight. When you open the door, it's the first thing you see. But you know, I have them all displayed on those little plastic shelves, and I have that little Kenner woodmark piece, so that the Kenner logo kind of pops, you know, the color of it and everything. So he was kind of like, "Whoa!" Like I've never seen the old figures together like that before. And then the Millennium Falcon floor too. A lot of people, that's kind of the first thing they see when they look down. And because the first thing I tell people before I open the door is just watch where you step, because you know, I put everything out, and even I step on stuff sometimes. I should know where it is, right? So when I open the door and they say, "What are you talking about? Watch where you step," they'll see the Millennium Falcon stuff and they'll be like, "Holy, oh man!" They kind of go like that.
Interesting. And then, you know, obviously watch where you step. You don't want anyone stepping on any Millennium Falcons or anything that might be on the floor. But are people allowed to touch if they want to touch part of your collection?
Sure.
Only sight.
Yeah, I'll tell them that if there's something you really want to see, pick it up. Just obviously don't knock anything over, and you know, don't break it. That's pretty much the only thing. I guess the only things I wouldn't have them touch are those sideshow collectible polystone. I mean, they're heavy and they're durable, so it's not like they're really going to do anything. But also, like, please don't touch those. those are pretty pricey.
Those are really cool. I love that sideshow. You know, the Princess Leia, the Stormtrooper with the Ewoks. I've never actually seen that one before until I saw it here with you. And I thought there was just the two Ewoks up there, but there's even one guy down at the leg as well.
Yeah. It's my favorite piece because, like I said earlier, like the part of the story with the Ewoks is one of my favorite parts in the entire saga. And years ago at Star Wars Celebration 4 in LA in 2007, there's a famous painting somebody painted that Steve Sansweet has it now at Rancho Obi-Wan. But it was like a fierce Ewok. He's like got sharp claws and he's got like sharp teeth, and he's all bloody, and there's like a bunch of bloody dead stormtroopers. And I thought that was so cool, like the representation that they're not just cute little cuddly cartoon characters, like they're vicious, you know, like, because if you imagine like you're a stormtrooper and you're caught in a battle like that, and those things can come at you and they're strong and you tear your arm off or whatever, like it'd be scary. And I remember, like, this is gonna sound weird, you know, something that a kid would think, but I remember as a kid I was like, yeah, Ewoks are fun, they're cute, they're cuddly. But I was like, I like how they fight the stormtroopers, man. I like how they take it to the Empire, you know.
And they gang up.
So yeah, so I ever since I saw that painting in 2007, I was like, oh, that was so cool. That's a great representation. And then in 2010, Sideshow made this statue, and I don't know how it somehow slipped under my radar. I don't know how I missed it, because it's almost like it was designed just for me, like somebody with my mindset. I mean, how many of us are there really? And I just didn't see it. And then when I got this house, And I was like, okay, I'm going to start building up the room. I came across it somewhere and I was like, oh my God, that is going to be the centerpiece. I need that. And it took about 4 years of hunting it down before I finally found it, because it is difficult. They only made a couple thousand pieces, and when they sold them, they were just gone. So I'm very blessed to have that piece. I'm very happy.
So there's a number of items that we haven't spoke of yet that appear in the video. There's the video game machine. There's the various, I want to say the Picasso, Star Wars in the back. There's also the soda pop cans and the pizza boxes. Tell me a little bit about those.
One of the things I like collecting, and I don't know how I forgot to mention it earlier, but I love foodstuffs. I love the advertisements that comes with foodstuff, because it's just, I don't know, it's kind of bizarre to me. And I just like the way they look, going back to when you're trying to grab people's attention on the shelf, and you need to stimulate their brain so they buy your product. Something about those packaging, I can't fully explain it, but it falls under the bizarre category. I just love the random food stuff. And if that's, to be honest with you, if I had more space in this room, I would have more of that stuff, because it's just so weird to me. But yeah, the soda cans, I remember that summer of '99 when Fandom Menace stuff was everywhere. You couldn't walk 5 feet without seeing it. And I remember just thinking, like, the Pepsi cans, like, they said those collectors get all 26 or something. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to do that. I'm going to get all 26. And I remember every night going to a different grocery store with my friends and buying cans and buying bottles. And then when I set them up in the room, I realized I didn't have shelf space to combine with other stuff. And I realized with once again, those 3M command stickers fit right on my door. What else was I going to put on my door? I think they look great there. So yeah.
And I think I saw in the video, but just to confirm, you've actually taken the soda out of them.
Yes.
They're empty at this point.
So that's a funny story. So I moved out of my parents' house in 2000 when I was 18. I kept one of those cans full, just for gigs, I guess. I just thought it'd be really funny if one can stayed full. My parents packed up everything when I moved out. They put it in storage, and I just want to say thank you to them for doing that. They didn't have to. I'm very, very blessed that they did that. They moved. This is when I was living in Seattle. They moved to California. They moved several times in California. They always brought my stuff. I'm eternally grateful. And then when I bought this house, I called my parents and I said, now's the time. You've been holding it. Now it's time for it to come home. So when we were moving some of the boxes, I noticed one of the boxes, like, the bottom was all, I don't even know how to describe it. It was like a weird moldy sensation. I'm like, this is weird. And then I opened it, and one of the cans had somehow leaked, but I never found a hole in it. It just leaked. It just came out of the can and got over everything that was on the bottom of that box. So I was like, well, this box is going in the trash. So let that be a lesson. If you ever collect Star Wars soda stuff, drain the soda. Yeah, don't leave it in there. It's not as funny as you think it would be 20 years later.
And then I also wanted to follow up. I saw a couple odd-looking items in your collection that I hadn't seen before. Maybe you can help explain these. One was an AT-AT that kind of had like a rounded nose, and next to it was a Star Destroyer. I think they were white with like some black striping or something. What exactly are those?
Those are some art pieces from an artist named Bill McMullen. They're supposed to look like Adidas Superstar 2 shoes. That's like a side thing in my life. I've just always found the aesthetic of that shoe very pleasing. It's like a cool looking shoe. And then there's a cultural history to it, with the rapper Run DMC and, street culture from the 80s and things like that. And that's another one. I was on eBay. I never knew it existed. Came out around 2012-ish, I want to say. I'm gonna have to be fact checked on that. But slipped under my radar. And then when I was on eBay and I saw it, and I said, hey, it's two things combined that I love. I need that. So I got the Star Destroyer piece, and then I found out later that AT-AT was extremely rare. Like, he only made, I think, maybe 150 of them or something like that. And the Star Destroyer was a little bit more mass produced. So that was another piece that I spent years tracking down, looking. And finally one day, once again, eBay, somebody put it up for auction, and I watched it and I followed it. And one guy at the end was trying to outbid me, and I said, no, not today. This is coming home with me. I need this. I need this piece. So I very prominently display that in detail.
You mentioned at the beginning that every piece has a story behind it, and you've provided that 100% to us. everything that we've talked about, there's been a story behind it. So thank you for that. Another quick question I saw on the ground there next to the Millennium Falcon rug. There was also an original Death Star playset, the Death Star playset from 1978. Is that complete? And what's the story behind that one?
I had a coworker, a very, very nice coworker, come up to me and he just said, "Hey, I heard you like collecting Star Wars stuff." And I said, "Yeah, I do." And he said, "Oh, my wife, she just emptied some storage unit that her family had back in, I want to say, Oklahoma." I should know this. It's embarrassing, I forgot. But let's just say Oklahoma. And she has all of her old Star Wars figures that her and her brother had. Do you want to come over and look if you want to buy anything? And I said, "Oh yeah, sure." And then I went over and they had that Death Star complete. Even had the original foam pieces in the trash compactor set with the trash monster in it. She had the dewback complete. Normally the dewback, remember that the plastic part snaps normally. That was intact.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and I said, "Oh wow, like I didn't realize you had this high end stuff." I thought it'd be a lot smaller items or something. So I said, "Hey, I didn't bring enough cash. Like I'm sorry, I didn't know. Maybe we could talk price. I can go to the ATM and come back." And she said, "No, this piece, I'll give it to you for $50." And you want a good deal, but at the same time, you don't want to take advantage. So I immediately said, "No, I can't do that. It's worth more than $50." And she was pretty adamant. She said, "No, I don't want it in the house. I don't need it. $50." So I gave her the money. I mean, that was one of those feelings that you just can't believe what's happened, right? Like it almost is like you're watching yourself from far above or something. And so I said, "Okay." And then she noticed I looked at the dewback. She said, "Do you have this?" And I said, "No, I don't have that either." She goes, "Hey, you just take that too." And I said, I can't. And she said, "No, just take it." So I it was very windy that day. I very carefully held it because I didn't want those foam pieces to go flying. Right. And I very gently put it in my car. And then when I was driving home, I don't know, that feeling, sort of like that kind of weird euphoria when you get a really good collector's item for the price like that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a good day. That was a fun day.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Very impressive, very impressive. So if you could, and it may be a difficult thing to answer, but do you have any one particular favorite?
For sure, that Sideshow Collectibles, the Stormtroopers. I mean, the Ewoks killing the Stormtrooper. That is like, every time I see it, I'm very excited. Like, I can't believe I have it. Just blows me away, and it's just so crafted so well. The detail on it, and what it represents, and everything. And I have another statue like that. That's much shorter, but it's stylized to be like animated style, like 2D animation style. And that's fun. I like it a lot. I actually got that piece first, and I remember for years I thought this is going to have to be the placeholder because I'm never going to get that Sideshow piece. And I enjoyed that piece for a long time. But when I got that Sideshow piece, I was like, "This is it." It actually was a period where I thought, "I'm done. What else can I get?" Star Wars collecting is finished for me. And then, of course, that's not true. I've got many more pieces since then.
So the Ewok episode, was that episode 6?
Oh, yeah, Return of the Jedi.
Would you say that that's your favorite movie then?
No, episode 4 is my favorite movie, which I know is kind of a boring answer, but I think as a standalone movie, it's the best because it was meant to only be a standalone movie. Yeah,
it's the first, the original.
Yeah, it's got a beginning, middle, and end to it. I mean, that's to me is like the epitome of movie making. The long time ago, Galaxy Far Far Away, Star Wars, the scroll tells you everything you need to know. The little blockade runner, the big Star Destroyer. I mean, from the second you watch it, you're in it, right? I mean, there's not a lot of movies that can do that, and to me, it does it the best. So that, as a movie, by far, it's my favorite movie.
Fantastic.
That's great. I think that I have everything that I want to ask on my end. Jim, is there anything additional that you want to talk to Joe about while we have him here?
I think we've kind of touched on all of the things that we intended to ask about. Is there anything that you, Joe, would like to offer or say about your collection?
No,
maybe there's some advice you want to offer to other collectors.
I guess advice, know what you're buying and know what the good price point is. Shop around, because these days there's a lot of people, the prices that they sell things at, it makes me scratch my head sometimes. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, why are you doing this? And then I just realized at the end of the day, somebody somewhere has bought something from them once at that price, and they shouldn't have done that. So just make sure you know what you're looking at, you know what it should, like the range should be, for what you should buy it for. And always check like your local antique mall, your local collectible store. You never know what they'll have. They have a lot of fun stuff, and you know it's always fun to go hunt, see what's out there.
Yeah, the hunt. That's the big fun about it. I'll spend hours on the computer looking at different things and finding different things and comparing prices of different things. I recently got into old tobacco tins, and some guy pointed out to me, look for variations. And if you look close enough, there's a lot of variations in similar characters.
Yep.
Yeah, 100%. You know, I will ask you one last thing here. The Atari video game you have, the actual console, is that like an arcade Star Wars game that you put the quarter in? Or which is that exactly?
That's from the company Arcade 1-Up. They make small replicas. They're not full size. They're very, very high quality, though. I recommend them as a company. I have this Star Wars piece. I have a Burger Time piece that's downstairs. That's an Arcade 1-Up. But the Star Wars piece, I got more to be an art piece because I love the stylized version of it. It's very indicative of the time period that it came out, and I love the graphics on it. And it is a working machine. It has the original Atari 77 arcade game. It has the 1980 Empire Strikes Back upgrade. If you remember that, they sent those kits out to the arcades, and they had to like upload the programming into the console machine. And then it has the 1983 Return of the Jedi. All use the same yoke. It's fun. I mean, you plug it in, you turn it on. I will say, for the price that you pay, if you're getting it just as a game console, it's only 3 games, right? and they're very primitive games. I mean, the levels just keep repeating over and over again. But if you think of it as an art piece, it's good stuff. And I definitely think of it as an art piece. And it's one of my favorite items in the room, too. I think it kind of holds the room together.
Got it.
Very cool. Very cool. Fantastic collection you have there.
Thank you.
So that's our evening with Joe and Joe's collection. I just want to thank Joe again for the time that you spent with us, describing your collection to us, showing the collection to us, and really helping the people out there understand where the collection comes from, kind of the why behind the collection, which I think is an important thing. Really appreciate it. For both Jim and I, may the force be with you, Joe. This has been great.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you so much.